Today we're going to be making the paper turbocharger from scratch. It has been a year since I've made it, or a year and some change since I've actually made one out of paper. So I'm basically just be designing this from scratch, even though I know how I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be like the one y'all have previously seen me do, but I'm gonna just be trying to redo it today because it's been a year. And when I made that one, that was my very first one. So I'm gonna see if I can do the same thing again. I'm pretty sure I can, but let me draw this template up and I'm gonna show y'all what it looks like. All right, so this is basically what the propeller, what you wanna call it, the turbine. This is basically the shape for it. So it's gonna be a little square. Then each pedal thing is like two squares long, like that. And then there's a little shaft part in the middle for it to rotate and spin around. Now we're gonna make the housing for it, which is just gonna be a circle like this. That's why I got the circle template. So once you draw that, try to find a circle close to the diameter of that turbine right there. It'll probably be this. I'm gonna use this one. Or let me see. Or this one. It doesn't really matter. Just get it close. All right, so this is roughly how the size of that circle should be. Then for the air to come in, it's gonna come in roughly about something like this. It'll be something like this, y'all. This is a rough estimate, a rough drawing. So basically this is all to it though. Now, what we're gonna do to start off making this thing is you wanna cut out, y'all, I'm actually doing this from scratch. This thing is roughly about 3 by 5. So cut out 3 by 5. I'm actually make this about 4 sheets thick. So let me show y'all. So this is basically the first shape for the housing of the turbo to start off with. You wanna have a 5 by 12 and crease it every 3 vertical lines. So crease right there, there, and there. All right, here's what that should start off as. Now you wanna crease every 3. Like this. Then start folding like this and stack them. Now it should be like this. All right, gonna be using some super glue like always. There we go. What's going on outside? So this is how that part should look to start off with. All right, so now that you got this piece as the turbo housing, now you want to cut it into this shape right here. So draw this circle. I'm gonna put that right there. All right, now you can really just find the circle that matches up to the size of that paper right there. Something like this. All right, so that should be like that. All right, so now once you have that circle right there, you can now draw this little thing right here. Have something like that. Now cut this whole shape out. Just cut this part because this is where the air is gonna come in. Cut this part and cut around this circle, like cut these edges off. All right, this is how that should look. It does not have to be perfect at all, but this is the turbo housing or the back right there. Now you want to put a little hole right there, or you don't have to put it in there yet, but just put something right there, or just know that this is gonna be a hole. Let's move on to the actual turbine itself. All right, so we're gonna make 4 of these little blade looking things like that. So we're gonna make them 2 long, and it's gonna be 1 piece of paper wide, so, or 1 square wide. So that's just 1 right there, but we gotta make it thicker. So we're gonna maybe cut like 4. We can cut like 4 of them. Yeah, or 2 of them, honestly. Let's try 2. We can just do 2 of them. So basically just cut out a square, a 2 by 2 square for each blade. So do 4 of them. All right, here they are. Now what you want to do is cut down the middle, or not cut, but like crease or scar. We're gonna be creasing these middle lines on all of them to make it a 2 by 1. All right, so grab each one and fold them like this. That's 1. Now you wanna glue them. All right, this is how they all should look. All right, now we gotta make this little square part in the middle right here. So that's gonna be like a 5, depending on how thick you want it. It can be like this, it can be like this. Do a 2 by 5 to start off with. And then once you do that 2 by 5, crease this line in the middle like that. All right, this is how that piece should look. Now you wanna get it, crease right there. Now we're gonna glue these 2 parts together. Okay, now we got that part. Now, it should look like this. Now what you wanna do is crease all of these lines in the same direction. And this is how it should be. Crease right there, crease right there, crease right there, and crease that last one, and it'll end up being a shape like this. So put some glue right there on that 1 square and put it under there. Boom. Boom. And now you got this part right here. Now we're gonna take our blades, each one, and glue it like that onto this square part. And it won't be perfect at first until we put that circle on the inside. So if it's like moving like this, that's all right. You can still glue the blades down. That's what we're gonna do. Alright, this is how it should look. Y'all, mine's is so ugly, but it's still gonna work, y'all. I gotta make this as ugly as possible just to let y'all know how unperfect it has to be to actually function. All right, y'all, so now we got the turbo housing and we got this thing right here. It's gonna be a tight fit, but if it doesn't fit all the way, we can always trim these blades just a little bit just to make it fit. But before we do that, let's actually make the middle part right there. We're gonna make something. We're gonna make a shaft and a bearing for the shaft that this thing can rotate on. Let me show y'all how that's done. So what I'm gonna do for that shaft is I'm gonna make it maybe 2 squares long. So that little part in the middle right here will be sticking up like 2 squares high, just to give it room. So 2 by 5. Cut out a 2 by 5 sheet of paper. All right, here it is. Now what you wanna do with this is gonna be the shaft, so all you wanna do is just start rolling it from the very beginning, like this, boom. And just keep doing that until it's as tight as possible. As you can see right there. Now find that layer, and to secure it in place, I'm gonna add a little bit of glue. That is not a little bit of glue. Now it's gonna get on my fingers, y'all. Watch. Look, it's already on my fingers. Man. All right, so this is the shaft that's gonna be right there. Now we gotta make something to fit this thing onto that shaft. What I'm gonna do with that one is, it only gotta be 1 wide, and I don't know how long it's gonna have to be, but I'm gonna start off with maybe like the 20, 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 20, it'll be right there. So cut out a 1 by 20 to start off with. Like that. All right, this is what I have right here. This is probably not 1 by 20, but it doesn't even matter, honestly. But what you wanna do with it is start making it, but you wanna be careful right here. So you wanna start rolling it at the same diameter as this shaft that it's gonna be spinning on. So a little bit more. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of glue right there. Be careful not to stick the shaft to that part right there. All right. You wanna start to roll it right there at the beginning. And now you can take this shaft out. We just needed this for reference. And now you got the hole in the middle, the same size as that right there. And now you can finish rolling this up until it actually fits to the outside diameter, fits inside this square right here. that's how that is. But this does not look like it's gonna fit in here. Or maybe it will. Hey, I don't know. I don't know, but hey, that looks about perfect though. So once you're done making that part, put it in the square. Let's try to glue it in there somehow. Let's see how we can do that. Right. Right. Really? All right. Dang, touching all on the glue. All right, there we go. And now you can try to even it out, but mine is not perfect. We got that shaft that can go through it. Feels like a tight fit on there, that shaft. But that's the turbine right there, and the shaft that it's gonna be spinning on. Now, what you wanna do with this shaft is you can poke a hole in this housing right here where that black part at. Make sure it's in the middle of it and poke a hole big enough for this thing to go through it. And we're gonna glue that inside that hole so it can stand up like that. All right, y'all, we put the shaft through it, as you can see, like that. Now just glue it. We can take it back up real quick. Now, just glue that part in there. We're gonna glue the very end of it, like that. Take the housing. Boom, twist it in there a little bit and make sure it's aligned. Like that. Boom. Something like that, y'all. Then once that's in there, like that, you can take your turbine thing and it slides onto the shaft like that and it'll spin like this. Y'all, I actually gotta make this thing a looser fit real quick. Hold on. All right, so basically we have this part right here. What you wanna do is, you see how the blade is coming up a little bit past that circle part right there? Really all of the blades are doing that. You wanna trim these blades to the point where it does not go past that circle. So just cut slightly off that blade until it matches that circle part right there so it doesn't interfere with anything. All right, so now we're gonna start off with the I don't know what you wanna call it, another part of the housing, just the thing that goes around it. So for that housing part, we're gonna make it approximately 1.5 things, 1.5 wide. I don't know exactly how much squares to do, so I'm just gonna cut like a long thing like that. And to make it 1.5, you wanna cut 3 wide, and you can maybe go down all the way to like maybe 30 or something. I don't know, I'm actually like just freestyling this whole thing, so something like this. Something like this. Now, you wanna take this and you could either try to eyeball it and crease down the middle of that middle square, but I'm just gonna fold it in half. All right, once you fold it in half, you want to glue it together. Boom. Now you take the turbo housing right there, and you want to roughly like estimate the sides of this thing. I'm gonna start with this part because I can just see the 2 squares and then I'll crease right there. So start with like 2 squares right there and crease at that second square. And that's where you wanna start at. You can see like this. Boom. And then wrap it around that circle. Yeah, this is actually kind of tough. But something like this. And get an estimate. You can cut that part. I'm gonna cut right there. Let's get a rough estimate. Boom. Now, once you get this part like that, you want to start gluing this thing on there. So I'm gonna glue right here. I'm not gonna glue too much yet, but I'm gonna glue the part to start off with. Boom. It should be something like this. I know this is ugly, but let me try to push this part back a little bit. So I don't know. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. It can start off like this just to let it dry. You don't have to do too much with it, but you do want to make sure it can come up a little bit. You don't want it caving in on the turbine blade or the, whatever you want to call it. Boom. So that's basically the turbo housing right there. You can cut off the excess, which is that on the end. Cut that off and cut that part off and make it flat too. All right, it should look like this now. Then you got your turbine. Let's see how well it fits in there. Nah, it look like we need to cut it just a little bit more. All right, so it should kind of look like this. Look like I don't know if I gotta cut the blade more or if that shaft is just a little different. Or I don't know. I don't really care. This is how it should be though. All right, y'all, for the other side of this turbo housing, make it the same exact shape with that circle right there, but we're gonna make a smaller circle inside that circle. Let me show you. So basically make it like that, cut the edges off, and then cut that little tiny circle on the inside out. All right, this is how it should be. Should be like that, and then this part just goes on the other side of it. Should be able to fit inside that part right there somehow. So basically it just goes on the other side of there, but I'm gonna leave it off just to show y'all this thing working. Now it's optional, but you can make a circle part and put it right there at the end of the turbo, but I'm not gonna do that with this one. I'm just gonna put a put something right here to blow air at this turbine. Let's go test it out. Let's go put it on the air compressor. All right, y'all, here it is, the very first run. This is where the intake is gonna be. Now let's see if it works. Oh. It works. Let me try lubricating that shaft on the middle right there, and I'll be back. All right, add a little bit, just the slightest little bit on there. Well, I hope y'all like the tutorial. This is a very simple turbo right here. Very simple. If you wanted to be a little stronger, just increase the layers like of the blades. It's only 2 sheets of paper, but they're very like, you can bend them easily. Got low strength, but it still works. So working turbo, how to make a paper turbo right here.